So today's our topic it is a memory. That is the physiology of memory. We will learn in the brief. Okay. So the first we will see the definition. Now what is the definition of memory? Whenever you write down the question, first thing it should be always a definition. Now what is the definition of memory? Definition of memory it is a acquisition, storage and the retrieval of sensory information. So it is a process of acquisition, storage and retrieval of sensory information. Okay, these three words are important and obviously it is of sensory information. Now what is the learning? We will see only the definition of learning. Otherwise it is also the separate physiology of learning. So the learning it is a acquisition of sensory information as well as capability of one to change in behavior in based on the sensory information. So it is a basically change capability to change a behavior based on sensory information. Based on sensory information. Okay, so that is the learning. Now the second step, that is the classification. So the classification of the memory. So the classification it is also according to two or you can also see the types of memory. So the most common and the popular classification that is on the based on the permanency of the storage. It is on the based on the permanency of the storage. Based on the permanency of storage. Okay. And the second, the classification of memory that is based on the type of information stored. That is based on the type of information stored. Okay. So the permanency of the storage, almost all of you must be knowing that the permanency of the storage that is a short-term memory. That lasts for the few seconds to few minutes and it is usually less than the 1 minute. Then intermediate long-term memory. Intermediate long-term memory. And the last one it is a long-term memory. Actually there is no specific demarcation on the in between this intermediate long-term memory and the long-term memory. Just we consider it that the intermediate long-term memory it lasts for the days to weeks, while this long-term memory it is lasts for the this long-term memory it lasts for the weeks to years or for the entire lifetime. And slight difference in mechanism also, but there is no specific demarcation that up to this day if the memory is remembered then it is intermediate long-term memory, and up to this days or the years it is remembered then it is considered as a long-term memory. So but always when you write down the short note, always write the three: short-term memory, intermediate long-term memory and the long-term memory. Okay, now the types of information. The classification of the memory on the based on the type of information stored. So it is divided into the implicit memory or the explicit memory. Implicit memory or the explicit memory. Now what is implicit memory? The implicit memory as a name implicit. So it is a non-declarative type of memory. Another name is non-declarative type of memory. Non-declarative type of memory, or you can say the reflexive memory. You can see the reflexive memory. Now what is explicit memory? Exactly opposite to it, that is a declarative type of memory. Okay, or the recognition type of memory. Explicit memory it is a declarative memory, recognition memory, or the explicit memory. While this implicit memory, it is a non-declarative memory and the reflexive memory. Okay. Okay. So the now we will go the types of information and the classification of memory based on that is the implicit memory and the explicit memory. We will see some basic difference. So what is the implicit memory? Another name of implicit memory I already told you, that is a non-declarative type of memory, non-declarative type of memory, or it is a reflexive type of memory. Okay, and here it is a declarative type of memory. Explicit, it is a declarative type of memory. Okay, so the implicit memory and the explicit memory. Now which are the differences? This implicit memory, it is slow to develop as compared to explicit memory. So it is slow to develop. Once it develops, it becomes automatic. It becomes automatic once it develops. Okay, it does not require the consciousness. It does not require the consciousness, means conscious thought. Okay, so it does not require the conscious thought once it is developed. So obviously, or you can say that you does not need awareness of that particular thought, whatever thing you are going to perform. Then it does not require the hippocampus. Not require the hippocampus. Okay, so here it is a cross. But if you are remembering the physiology of limbic system, hippocampus, it is a critical decision making the neuron structure which will decide that this information is going to be stored or it can be discarded. So but here the hippocampus is not required. So the which structure are required? That for this implicit type of memory, that is a striatum of basal ganglia. See, according to the guidance, that is the striatum of the basal ganglia. Okay, in some book it is also written the cerebellum. So you can remember the structure striatum, that is a must. Then cerebellum and the neocortex. And the neocortex. So these are the structure responsible for development of the implicit type of memory or the non-declarative type of memory. Now we move for the explicit memory or the declarative type of memory. So it is fast to develop as compared to this reflexive or the implicit type of memory. But here which types of information is stored, that is the about the general knowledge, or you can say the general facts, as well as the personal experiences. General facts and the personal experiences. Okay, so if we see the example of both, here the reflexive type of memory, the example of this implicit or the reflexive type of memory, that is the learning a vehicle. If you are learning the vehicle, car, or the maybe the two-wheeler, so it is require some time to develop this type of memory. But once you are knowing it perfectly, if someone came in front of your vehicle, you will suddenly brake. At that time you do not require the conscious thought that this is coming in front of my vehicle, I will make a brake. So it is becomes automatic. Or same thing, if you are playing tennis, if you are playing cricket, suddenly whenever ball came, suddenly you shot it. So this is the examples of implicit memory or the non-declarative type of memory. It required the motor skills. While this explicit memory or the declarative type of memory, it is related to the your personal experiences and the general knowledge and the explicit memory, it is related to the general facts and the personal experiences. We will this both of these two memory again classified into two types. But before we go further classification of this explicit memory and the implicit memory, we will see the which structure is required for development of this explicit memory or the declarative type of memory. So here the striatum, cerebellum and the neocortex for this implicit type of memory. While for the explicit type of memory, we need obviously hippocampus. It needs hippocampus. Obviously, it requires the consciousness or the awareness or the medial temporal lobe. Okay, so this is the structure must for the development of the explicit memory. If you are reading something and if you want to remember, then it definitely requires the consciousness, conscious thought related to that particular sensory information, and your hippocampus or the medial temporal lobe, it must be properly working. So that is the basic difference. And I am repeated this because it is important for the MCQ. Okay, now we see the further classification of this implicit memory and the explicit memory. So okay, so further classification or of this implicit memory and the explicit memory is here. So implicit memory or the reflexive memory or the non-declarative memory again divided into the procedural type of memory and the priming. And this explicit memory is divided into the episodic memory and the semantic memory. Now what is episodic memory and what is semantic memory? So the episodic memory, it is usually related to how the information is acquired, or also the personal experiences. So the how, that is the important word, how the information is acquired, and the second is the personal experiences. Second one is the personal experience, right? Now what is the semantic memory? So it is usually related to the facts, or you can say just general knowledge or knowing something or knowing of sensory information, that is the semantic memory. Or you can say, if here the whenever you ask the word how, that is a part of episodic memory, and whenever you ask the question what, okay, here the what, you have to ask the question what, and here you have to say how. So whenever how this information is acquired, that is a function of this episodic memory. That type of sensory information, it is a part of this episodic memory. And this semantic memory, now what is this? That is the part of semantic memory. Now let's start with the example. We understand it with the example. Suppose you are seeing the old picture or the old photo with your papa and the car. Then at that time you are knowing, this is my papa, this is my car, you are my first car. So this is the information, that is a part of semantic memory. Or if you are knowing that this is a photo, you are knowing that this is a car, this is this type of this is a blue car or this is a white car. So that is the information part of the semantic memory. But when you see the photo, you also remember that who made the click of this photo, who bought this car, which are the other persons present at that time when there is a clicking of this photo. So that is the function of this episodic memory. So the personal experiences, or you can say autobiographical memory. Someone came to your home for the dinner, so experience with that person, that at which time they came, how was your dinner with them. So that is a part of episodic memory. But whatever the you are knowing about that person, that the name of this person or the relation with that person, so that is the semantic memory. So basically episodic memory, it is a autobiographical memory. It is a autobiographical memory, and it is here the semantic memory, it is related to the general knowledge and the facts or the sensory information. This was a semantic memory. Some person have a strong episodic memory, some person have a strong semantic memory. They know the information, this is this thing, but the other aspects are related to that, they are not remembered. So it is depend on your genetic structure. Semantic memory, you can also call it as a book learning. It is also known as a book learning. Semantic type of memory, that is a book learning, and episodic memory, that is a autobiographical memory. So now onwards, whatever we learn or whatever you learn, okay, sir, that is a book learning. So you are learning the semantic type of memory. And emotions, emotions, not the emotion, but the other things related. Whenever you learning this question, that if you are learning it in the group discussion, okay, so if you remember that whenever you see the question of memory, and if you remember the group discussion that this person were present, so it is a episodic memory. And if you are remembering the content of this question, that is your semantic memory. Okay, now let's this implicit memory, procedural memory and the priming. Most common is the procedural memory. Okay, so I have already told you the example of the procedural memory, like the learning a vehicle or learning any game. Now we see the priming. So what is the priming? Priming, if you want to understand it better, to remember the word purvagrah in Gujarati. Like if you already some information stored in your brain, and this the whatever experience related to that information came into your mind, you are biased for particular thing. Okay, because the already some information present in your brain. So the priming is basically related that if you have heard particular thing, particular word frequently, or you have seen the particular thing frequently, whenever you ask to say something about that thing will come in your mind first. For example, if you are asked for speaking of the name of animal starting from D, if you are asking to speak of the name of animal start from D, usually we will say dog first, because we are frequently seeing the dogs around us, and it is more common already. You are seeing the dog so much time as compared to other animals, which are starting from the name of that animal starting from the D. So that is the priming. So whatever information that is stored in your brain, if you are frequently go through it, whenever you ask some question related to that, at time you are not consciously thinking about that I should speak a dog, or I should say this, and similar thing you will experience in exam. If you are go through one topic frequently, and when you ask the question related to that, sometimes you answer wrong, and immediately after it you will come to know, no, this answer was wrong, I said it reflexive. So what is this? That is the priming of that particular information. So that is the example of this implicit memory. Okay, and priming, and this structure of the brain is required for this priming, that is the neocortex. Okay, so now just remember all these types. Okay, let's start with the mechanism of memory. So that is our next heading of how the memory get developed. So you have to write down the encoding and the consolidation. Encoding and the consolidation. It is applicable to both implicit memory as well as the explicit memory. But for the consolidation of implicit memory and the explicit memory, the structures involved, they are different. So write down the heading, encoding and the consolidation. Now what is the encoding? So the encoding is basically the your brain will decide that which type of information is this, and where we have to store this information if it is processed further. So when you encounter the information for the first time, your brain will compare if same type of information is present in your brain, and if it is present, so that memory it will be stored along with that. Okay, like visual type of memory, it may be the some memory traces stored near the occipital cortex. So the if you want to remember some visual scene, so it will be stored accordingly. So here the encoding, it will decide that which type of information is there, and if the same information is present in your brain or not. So the encoding, it is basically the process by which newly learned information is attended and the processed when encountered for the first time. Okay, again I am repeating, encoding is the process by which newly learned information is attended and the processed when encountered for the first time. That is the encoding. Now next is a consolidation. Now what is a consolidation? So the consolidation, if we for by understanding, we remember it in one line, that it will be the consolidation, it is a process by which memory is converted from the short term memory to the long term memory. Without consolidation, the memory cannot be stored for the long term. Either it is intermediate long term or the long term memory itself. So it is, you can define the consolidation is like that. It is the process by which newly learned information and still liable information, newly learned and the still liable information converted into the stable information, so it can be stored for longer duration. So that is the consolidation. Again I am repeating, the consolidation is a process by which the new and the more liable information, newly learned information and still liable information converted into the stable information, so it can be stored for the longer duration. So that is the process for the consolidation. Now in process of the consolidation, the most important structure for the explicit memory, that is the hippocampus. Okay, for the explicit memory, it is the hippocampus. And so for encoding and the consolidation of the memory, structures important for the implicit memory, that is basal ganglia and the cerebellum. For the explicit memory, the hippocampus, it is a critical decision making structure, the how long the information is remembered. Then the medial temporal lobe, another one is parahippocampal gyrus and the entorhinal cortex. So these are actually important for the MCQ also. So they remember these structures in the mechanism of the memory. Okay, so these are the first step, encoding. The consolidation, it is a process by which the short-term storage of information converted into the long-term storage. So next heading for the mechanism of memory should be long-term storage. The mechanism of the short-term memory. Now short-term memory, it is basically lasts for few seconds. Okay. Now what is the mechanism of this? So the mechanism of this is the continuous neuronal activity. The continuous neuronal activity into the reverberating neurons. If you remember the different types of neurons, so the reverberating neurons, the continuous neural activity in the reverberating neurons, it is the mechanism responsible for the short-term memory. And second mechanism, it is the change at the level of neurotransmitter. Change in the level of neurotransmitter at the synapse. Change in the level of neurotransmitter at the synapse. Okay. There are two terminology. One is presynaptic facilitation and the second one is presynaptic inhibition. So it is applicable in all types of mechanism, short term, intermediate long term and the long term. So this line you have to write down, presynaptic facilitation and the presynaptic inhibition. In addition to that, you have to write down this two. The continuous neuronal activities, continuous neuronal activity in reverberating neuron. Okay, that is the first. And the second one is the presynaptic facilitation and the presynaptic inhibition. And in bracket you have to write down, basically here the change is taken place in the level of neurotransmitter. Change in the level of neurotransmitter. Change in the level of neurotransmitter in the at synaptic level or at the synapse. Okay, so that is the short term storage. Now we will move for the intermediate long term memory. Mechanism of the intermediate long term memory. See, I am keeping only heading here so we can go smoothly. Then the intermediate long term memory. Intermediate long term memory and the long term memory, these two processes require the consolidation. Okay, in short term memory or the short term storage of the memory, you also remember that short term memory is present until the thought of that particular problem or the particular information is present. Okay, so the short term memory is present only just for you are thinking about the information. When you left the thought, you will forgot that information. And the example of that short term memory is when you remember the OTP. Okay, when you remember the phone number for the short duration. So these are the examples of the short term memory. Okay, and the another one is another type of memory, that is a working memory. Okay, the working memory, it is a part of the short term memory and it is used when you are trying to resolve some problem or you are do some reasoning activity. If you are doing some reasoning activity, one step of reasoning is solved, you will forget that thought. Okay, again next step. So it is basically concerned with the intellectual process of your brain, that is the working memory, and it is different, it is comes under different heading, that is a working memory. So basically working memory, it is a type of short term memory. It is used for the intellectual purpose or the intellectual reasoning. Okay, now we will start the intermediate long term memory. Now which are the mechanism for the intermediate long term memory. Okay, so now let's start with the mechanism of the intermediate long term memory. For the intermediate long term memory, things you have to remember that there is a temporary changes, either physical or the chemical, at presynaptic or at postsynaptic membrane. So you have to write down the these words: temporary change at either physical or the chemical or the both. Okay, at presynaptic or the postsynaptic membrane. At the presynaptic or postsynaptic membrane. Okay, so this was the mechanism of the intermediate long-term memory. First sentence you have to write down this. Then next sentence you have to write down that it is either the increase the conduction at the synapse or decreases the conduction at the synapse. So the change in the synaptic conduction, and that is known as a synaptic plasticity. Change in the synaptic conduction, it is known as a synaptic plasticity. Okay, so second sentence you have to write down in mechanism of the long term memory or the intermediate long term memory: physical, this temporary change, and the second thing, that is a synaptic plasticity. That is the synaptic plasticity. Now this word synaptic plasticity is very much important, because in the different neuronal activity of brain, not only in the memory, there is a capacity of our synapse to increase the conduction or decreases the conduction, and this change in the conduction capacity of the synapse, it is known as a synaptic plasticity. Okay, now how this synaptic plasticity taken place? For the synaptic plasticity, there are two mechanisms. One is habituation and the second one is the sensitization. This habituation means presynaptic inhibition, or sensitization means presynaptic facilitation. There is another mechanism also for the this change in the conduction capacity, but at that level you have to remember. Okay, the sensitization, that is also known as a positive memory, and it means increases the synaptic conduction, and habituation means decreases the synaptic conduction, and it is also known as a negative memory. It is also known as a negative memory. This negative memory, it does not means the stored information which has a negative effects, but this is important for us, that the brain has a capability, or the brain has to brain is learning that which information is unnecessary, and we ignore that information. Sometimes something we remembered, but if it is it has a no long consequences, it will be get forgotten. It is because of the decreases the synaptic conduction. So that is our capacity of the brain to decreases the certain type of information, to decreases the conduction in certain synapse which are responsible for particular type of information. So that is negative memory. Does not means it is a information that has a negative effects, but it is because of the habituation, the information which is no longer useful, it get forgotten. So that is the habituation. So this is a word only I found in the guidance. So we see the sensitization mechanism of the synaptic plasticity, or the increases the synaptic conduction as a part of synaptic plasticity. So you required the for explanation of this, that is the sensory terminal, postsynaptic membrane, facilitated neuron. Okay, this was the experimental done in the snail aplasia, neuron of the snail aplasia, because it has a very large this type of neuron. So this experiment was demonstrated in that. Now there is a stimulation of the facilitating synapse with sensory terminal. Okay, if there is a stimulation of this and with this, what will happen? There is a release of the serotonin transmitter from the facilitator terminal, from the facilitator neuron at the sensory terminal. So this it will cause the release of serotonin, and this serotonin, it will act on the serotonin receptor which are present on the sensory terminal or the presynaptic neuron. Okay, so it will act on the serotonin receptor of the presynaptic neuron. What will it do? Once the serotonin receptor act on once there is a serotonin act on the serotonin receptor, it will do the activation of the cyclic AMP via this adenyl cyclase enzyme. Whenever there is activation of cyclic AMP, always it is through the activation of this adenyl cyclase enzyme. Activation of cyclic AMP, it will do the phosphorylation of the potassium channels via the protein kinase enzyme. Via the protein kinase enzyme, it will do the phosphorylation of potassium channel, and phosphorylation of the potassium channel, it will do blockage of the potassium channels. Once the blockage of the potassium channel, potassium cannot go out. So there is a positive ion remain in the this presynaptic neuron more as compared to the resting stage. So the blockage of the potassium conductance, it will lead to the prolonged depolarization. It will lead to the prolonged depolarization. And the prolonged depolarization, what it will do? It will do the increases the entry of calcium. It will do the increases the entry of the calcium into this presynaptic neuron or the sensory terminal. And once there is a more entry of the calcium or the more amount of the calcium, it will do the more release of the neurotransmitter. A more amount of calcium, more release of neurotransmitter, and there is a increase in the synaptic conduction. Okay, so this is the mechanism showing the sensitization or the presynaptic facilitation. Okay, this mechanism, it will also helpful to you in the physiology of learning, or whenever there is a word sensitization or the presynaptic facilitation, either in the as a property of the synapse, you can use this flowchart and use this. See the mechanism of the this negative memory or the habituation. Again repeating that negative memory does not mean the memory that has a negative effects, but it is to discard the unnecessary information or the information that has no consequences. But now how this taken place? It is because of the progressive closure of the calcium channel. So here you have to remember only one line. There is a progressive closure of the calcium channel. So there is a decreases the calcium conductance. There is a decreases the calcium conductance and decreases the neurotransmitter release. Decreases the neurotransmitter release. So decrease is the synaptic conductance. This level we have discussed the short-term memory and the intermediate long-term memory mechanism of this, particularly for the explicit memory. For the implicit memory, same thing is there, but two more terminology you have to add on: the classical condition and the operant conditioning. Classical conditioning and the operant conditioning. In addition to habituation and the sensitization. Okay, so this was for the implicit type of memory. Mechanism is same, but you have to add on this terminology: classical condition in the operant condition. This is a part of physiology of learning, but this is a part of also development of intermediate long-term memory of implicit memory. So you have no need to write down the detail of this classical and the operant conditioning, because in that also the presynaptic facilitation and inhibition they are the part of this process. Okay, so they just write down classical conditioning and the operant conditioning. Classical conditioning, it is a condition reflex between the two stimulus, while here the conditioning between the stimulus and the behavior. Here the behavior is associated with the stimulus. So just add on this. Mechanism of the long-term memory. So the long-term memory mechanism, it involves actually there is a physical structuring at the synapse. So in intermediate long-term memory, there is actually the either temporary change, and they can be chemical or the physical or the both. But here actually physical restructuring of the synapse is must. Then and then your memory can be stored for the longer duration. So here there is a physical restructuring at the synapse. It is also known as a spatial organization of the synapse. Actual structural changes at the synapses. So these are the terminology, all are same, but you can remember the physical restructuring at the synapse and the spatial organization of the synapse taken place. Now how it taken place? So it is by these mechanisms. The increases the vesicle release site. So increases the site from which vesicles are released that contain the neurotransmitter. Then increases the number of vesicles that contain the neurotransmitter. Next is increasing number of presynaptic terminal. That increasing the number of presynaptic terminal, it also called the dendritic spines, right? There is an increase in the number of presynaptic terminal or increase in the number of dendritic spines. Then change in the dendritic spines that allow itself the strong signal transmission, that allow the strong signal transmission. So all these are the mechanisms of the long term memory. Now how the information is stored. Once you are knowing that in this way the information or the memory is generated, but how or the where it is stored. So it is stored in the different part of the brain. That is not particular part, like the for the visual information, you are knowing that occipital lobe, it is doing the function of vision. Temporal lobe, it is doing the function of the auditory mechanism. But here over the memory, different information stored in the different parts of the neocortex. So it is not that way that only in the one part of brain the information is stored. So the information is stored in the different part of the neocortex. The memory traces are present in the different part of the brain. Now again for that this once the information is stored, there is an interhemispheric transfer. Like it is not that the memory is present only on one side of hemisphere or only on the one side of cerebral hemisphere, it is present on both. So if there is a processing taken place in the dominant hemisphere, it is also get transferred to the opposite side. So there is an interhemispheric transfer of memory taken place. Now next thing, that is the hippocampus. It is a critical decision making neural substrate that is responsible must for the development of the long term memory, particular of explicit type. Then amygdala, it is a part of limbic system. This amygdala, it will memorize the emotional aspects of the sensory information. So the emotional content, we can say the particular episodic type of information, it is usually stored in the amygdala. Then in the cerebellum and the basal ganglia, they are responsible for the consolidation of the explicit memory. So up to this level, there is a definition, then the types of memory, then mechanism of memory. In mechanism of memory, there is a encoding and the consolidation. Short-term memory, along with short-term memory, we have also seen the working memory. Then intermediate long-term memory. In that we have seen the habituation and the sensitization, and the intermediate long-term memory of implicit type. In that you have to add on two more word, that is the operant conditioning and the classical conditioning. Then mechanism of the long-term memory, and the last one is the storage of memory and the interhemispheric transfer of the memory. In the last part, in any physiology question, that is the applied aspect. So in applied aspect of the memory, this was the applied aspect of the memory. Amnesia means loss of the memory. It can be of two types, anterograde and the retrograde. Anterograde means they can't learn the new information. That is usually because of the lesion to the hippocampus, because hippocampus is the structure must for the consolidation of the memory of explicit type. The next is the retrograde amnesia. It is loss of the already stored memory. So the things if you have already learned, and if loss of that type of memory, it is known as a retrograde amnesia. Usually it is because of the injury to the some structures of the brain. Then apraxia. So the apraxia, it is deficit in the implicit type of memory. Here amnesia, it is loss of memory, but usually we concern with the loss of memory of explicit type. If there is a deficit in the implicit memory only, we call it as a apraxia, right? The third one is a senile dementia. It is a clinical syndrome of the elderly person in which they are characterized by the progressive impairment of the cognition and the memory. There is a progressive impairment of the cognitive capacity and the memory. And the most common cause of the senile dementia is the Alzheimer's disease. The most common cause of the senile dementia, it is the Alzheimer's disease. So usually we always talk these two together, senile dementia and the Alzheimer's disease, because it is the most common cause of Alzheimer's disease. It is the most common cause of senile dementia. And in last, again I am repeating this thing, that is the consolidation of the memory. Hippocampus is the most important structure and the consolidation is must. And the best example is that for the development of consolidation, at least 5 to 10 minutes is required, and it may be possible that the 1 hour may also require for the deep development of long-term memory. And you will also experience that sometimes when you fall asleep, you are not remembering the immediate events taken place before asleep, because information is there but you are not able to concentrate. So it is required a time of at least 5 to 10 minutes. Similarly, when there is some accident sometimes happens to some person and there is an injury to the brain, so person may become unconscious, right? So there is a no time is needed by brain to develop the concentration. So person will not remember that how the accident is taken place or what will happen to me whenever he recovered. So this is that importance of the concentration. So this was about the summary of memory, the definition, then types of memory based on the permanency of the storage, short term, intermediate long term, and the long term. Types based on the type of information, it can be stored as episodic memory, it can be implicit memory or the explicit memory. Implicit memory further classified into the procedural memory and the primary. The explicit memory, it is classified in the episodic memory and the semantic memory. Then the mechanism of the memory, first step, that is the development of the encoding and the consolidation. Then short term memory, in the short term memory we have to mention the working memory. In between there is the intermediate long term memory. There we will learn about the synaptic plasticity, that is the presynaptic facilitation or the sensitization or the positive memory. Then presynaptic inhibition, habituation or the negative memory. Negative memory, it is it will allow the brain to ignore the sensory information, that is has no consequences. So there is a no unnecessary storage of the memory, that is the negative memory. Then for the intermediate long term memory of the implicit type of memory, there is an addition of more. In addition to habituation and the sensitization, you have to write down the classical conditioning and operant conditioning. Then there is a, you have to write down the mechanism of the long term memory. Last one is the storage of the memory and the interhemispheric transfer of the memory. And applied aspect, in applied aspect there are three. One is the amnesia, the second one is the apraxia, and the last one is the senile dementia. So this was all about